Hi there. Welcome to this week's Slice of Advice. It's been a week, but I'm really glad that you're joining me at my table because this week we have a special guest, Matt Vergotis. So Matt Vergotis, I feel like I've known for a really long time. He's one of those names that if you are in the lettering industry, if you know anything about type or typism or lettering, you know the name. Even I feel like if he was to write his name first, you'd be like, oh, I know who that is. And then you meet him and you're like, oh, I know who that is now too. So I'm really, really excited to bring him on today because I actually haven't caught up with him since typism was last happening. So before I kick off, I just wanted to let you guys know that I've extended the access to my pricing calculator. So if you haven't jumped on my pricing calculator yet, I highly, highly recommend you do. And I've done a couple of updates in the last couple of days just to kind of tweak what your pricing results will be. So if you head over to easyasPiePricing.com/calculate, you can calculate your rate for you based on your specific situation, which I think is really important because we think, oh, this is what everyone else is charging, I should charge it too. But it's all about what is right for you. So I'm going to start by inviting him on.
This is very exciting because, Matt's just amazing. Hi, Matt.
Hello. How you doing, Jasmine?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm great. Yeah, I'm in my car.
Well, as long as you're not moving, that's fine.
Look, my house is crazy at the moment. As I told you on the phone before, we got a brand new puppy yesterday. And I work from an office. Okay, so first I work from an office, but I'm too loud when I'm talking. And because it's an
I
open
wouldn't have
plan.
thought that at all. No.
And I just sort of take over. Everyone goes quiet when I'm talking and stuff like that. And so I thought I'll do it from home. And then Ange, my wife, surprised us with a puppy yesterday. I knew it was coming. And it is so cute. It's the most adorable little thing you've ever seen. I swear. I know all puppies are cute, but this one's particularly cute. It's did I just say particularly? I think I did.
Yes.
It's a little toy poodle, and it's gorgeous. It's already won my heart. And but
What color is it?
it's a red one, but it's more apricot. Like it's not the full red, but it's kind of Oh, I'm going to
I
post
call them chicken strips, like your KFC crunchy chicken strips, because they just look like they've been like just all crunchy and crumbly and just delicious.
It's adorable. And we've got another dog, a Labradoodle. It's such an unfortunate name. Like whoever labeled them doodles,
Look,
Labradoodles, it's just the worst. Imagine if it was a shaggy lab. If it was a shaggy lab, everyone would be like, it'd be the trendiest dog.
Well, it's even worse in the UK because so if it's a golden retriever cross poodle, so we call it a groodle, but they call it a golden doodle, and I just find that's just
that's
so
bad
much.
It's terrible.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be my show if we didn't get distracted by dog talk, because we all know that I have chorizo, so that's dog and food talk in one, which is always good.
I may bring him out. Throughout the.
We aren't complaining.
Okay.
We aren't complaining.
I told my wife if I beat my horn, bring him out.
We've got dog delivery service. That's pretty good. It's not bad. It's not bad. So for those who don't know you, which I feel like they might be living under a rock, but that's okay. For those who don't know Matt Vergotis, give us a couple of sentence summary of Matt. Or Verge, really.
Matt, me. I operate under Verg. That's my company. I've been doing it. I started specializing in logo design. Many moons ago, a couple of decades ago, and that sort of morphed into logo and visual identity. And then somewhere along the lines, I'm giving a very brief summation here.
Fine.
Otherwise I get sidetracked and I go off into previous careers and all that sort of stuff. And somewhere along the lines, lettering came along. A client of mine that I was reading a brief, I thought, you know what would work well for them is a really kick-ass, sexy-looking lettering style logo. And
very specific words there.
Yeah. And so I decided to, like, when I started doing it, I thought, well, hang on, there's a skill involved in this. This is not just, okay, I can make a logo look like a Coca-Cola logo just by, like, I don't know, just going, okay, I want to start doing it. So I really knuckled down, and I enjoyed the process of trying to work it out. And I took a while to sort of, looking at other logos that had that same aesthetic, and trying to apply it. And yeah, so anyway, I did it, and that changed everything, right? Because whilst I do specialize in a variety of different styles, and like having to adapt to different clients, because they're all different, so being versatile, that one logo then all of a sudden pigeonholed me sort of down a lettering sort of style, because other clients saw that logo thanks to social media, and sharing my work, and then I got more requests for that style, and I love doing it. So I was really happy to embrace that every time a new client came along that wanted that sort of style, or I thought that style would suit a client. And it just went off. And it just became, my thing within the logo thing.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important to find your little corner of whatever it is that you're doing, because it means that you become this specialist rather than a generalist. And I was saying on the intro that it's almost like your style or the way that you do things comes before who you are, specifically yourself. Because I feel like if you wrote Matt Vergotis and someone was like, oh, I know who that is, and then they see you and then they put the two together, and it's like, oh, that makes total sense, because it's like almost your reputation precedes you, but your lettering precedes you, which is kind of cool.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks. Yeah, it's a funny one, hey, because I mean, like I was kind of, roughly saying before, like with corporate identity, like you have to wear many hats, and before lettering, like I definitely wouldn't say I had a style, because I embraced trying to learn new styles all the time. Whether it's sort of minimalistic sort of marks, negative space, or whether it's sort of antique, sort of, indulging in detail and all that. So I love tackling it all. And so whenever a client comes to me, and, I sort of read the brief and work out what will work for them, often it can be, like what happened with that client for the lettering. I can think of something that I haven't really sort of indulged in before. So I have never considered myself to have a style. But since lettering and calligraphy, then of course, because my natural handwriting has evolved, and you can probably identify, there's definite go-to styles. I really love that energetic sort of lettering style that's fast written, and then, vectorizing it and giving it a little bit more, making it more bold. And there's a lot of Russian letterers and calligraphers that are very good at that style as well. And I guess I've kind of, tapped into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Sergei Shapiro, for example, I'll give him a shout out. Like, he was the first calligrapher / letterer. You always have to say the two together because they're so different, but
yeah, they definitely are.
He was the first person that I identified his work, and I just fell in love with the personality of his letter forms and the way he vectorized them as well. Everything was so smooth and beautiful, and so yeah.
I love that. That's I feel like it's another skill set again, to be able to vectorize the work and not make it flat, because I feel like a lot of people, when they go, oh, it's going from written and handcrafted to, okay, now we have to make it digital, it sometimes loses a lot of its depth and character and personality. And to be able to keep that translating, I think, is a really interesting and beautiful skill to have.
Well, I think it requires equal parts skill, like to be able to do the hand lettering or calligraphy naturally on paper is one skill that's really important, but I think it's equally important to have that vectorizing skill as well, because you can sort of do something that looks beautiful on paper but butcher it when you vectorize it. And likewise, I actually think probably you could do a worse job on paper, but have the vector skills to bring it to
Mm-hmm.
life. So it's important to have both skills, I guess.
Yeah, finding that balance between the two.
Yeah.
So operating under Verge.
That's right, Verg.
So operating under Verge, you've basically created your own kind of alter ego for your freelance business, I guess. So you've kind of got Matt who does the stuff.
My surname's Vergotis, so Verg. It was, when I was choosing a company name, it was like, oh, do I go all, crazy? But my nickname's Verg, so I just went Verg. Easy, 4 letters. It was available. Bang.
Done. Like that's the thing. I did the same thing with Jasmine Designs. I was just like, it kind of tells itself. It actually says to you, I'm Jasmine. I design. There we go. Like done, sorted. And I kind of feel like I've created that alter ego of like that's the person that's going to be running the business, and I'm the person that's going to be doing the stuff. So, I kind of like that. And so, by creating this Verg business, would you say that you've kind of had this it's given you more of an ability to separate it from, oh, this is my person and the business is charging you. Therefore, like you're able to not have that connection with feeling bad about pricing someone for your own work, I guess, in a roundabout way.
Yes and no. It's always tricky. I mean, look, I've been loving your interviews because there are so many common, like everyone kind of feels roughly the same about this whole thing. I've been doing this now for 12 years, and I can't say that the way I do it is the right way. It just so happens it's worked, and I'm still paying the bills, and all of that. I'm still getting clients and stuff like that. Have I been able to disconnect from it? To an extent. I think once you've got a body of work, that helps you. Like a body of work that that has that value, that a client can see the value, that helps you disconnect from what the what you're charging. But I still struggle with it all the time. Like I get all sorts of clients from just very local businesses to really big businesses, like huge businesses, and
like Spotify.
Exactly. There's a couple I can't talk about at the moment, but like like down the track I'll be able to, and it's always tricky. It's always really tricky, and that's, it shouldn't be, but it is, and it comes down to that
shouldn't
value.
It be? I feel like it means that you care.
Yeah. I think it's the value-based thing that makes it tricky. And I know you guys have touched base on that plenty of times, but what works for a local business next door, like the local dentist next door, compared to say someone I guess like Spotify or a big corporate brand or something like that. Like the exposure is so much different. Or a brewery. I do a lot of work for breweries, so let's use that as a comparison, right? I do a logo for a dentist, and it's pretty much just sitting out the front on their door and stuff like that.
Might be on some letterheads, maybe on their socials.
I mean, look, it still is important to their business,
of course.
present well and all of that. But if you've got like a brewery that's competing in a space where you've got such a crowded space, and you're trying to, like, it's so important for a brewery to connect with their customers and build this brand story. And most
people buy alcohol on visual.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot do. Absolutely right. Look, there's a lot of, ingredients to the success of a brewery. And it's not just the visual identity, but it does play an important role. In fact, that's one of my little breweries just there.
That's actually the one that you're wearing at the moment is actually my favorite one that we've done. Like that's my favorite one, because I feel like when people add flourishes or swashes, they have the tendency to just go crazy, and I feel like this is less like you've contained it really nicely. So it's always been one of my favorite ones that I've kind of referred back to quite often and gone, this is how you can make monoline look sexy without being over the top, like elegant or like or ornate. It's nice.
So thank you very much. That means.
And same with Slipstream. Actually, I love Slipstream. The Slipstream one you did.
would be my favorite piece of lettering that I think that I've ever done. And it comes down to a lot of those little shadow cuts, not shadow cuts, those little ink trap sections that I did, which was an interesting balance because making lettering look on a can small, you know, I didn't want to lose some of that detail, and sometimes you've got to pronounce certain detail through the ink traps, stuff like that. But so getting back on track though with, sorry, I wanted to just say thank you for the compliment on that, because flourishes and swash, that's not my strength with lettering. But anyway, so thank you. Yeah, but getting back to that, so the value of that service for a brewery is a lot more, and especially if they've got these grand ambitions, you know, to grow and be the next, you know, Bolter, or you know, who's the one that just sold? Why am I having a mental blank? The Pacific. Oh, anyway, it's lost me for some reason.
Pack ale. So like your little creatures, or your
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I
I mean,
have a fiance who is an absolute craft beer aficionado. Like every single time he gets a new one, he takes a photo. There was a promo that was run a couple of months ago where it was like, buy a crate of craft beer. It was like 100 and something cans in this big long, like the poor delivery dude had to, like, it looked like it was a coffin. Like it was just so big. And so it really kind of shows to you that the brand and the value of being in that kind of very saturated space and creating that forward-thinking identity for them is really, really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got off the phone yesterday to another client on the other side of this continent that has a brewery and was looking at branding. And I had to explain that when I commissioned, because they come to you first for a logo, I'm like, well, you almost got to reverse engineer this whole process, because a logo is going to fall flat on its face if it's not backed up well by the visual assets that help communicate the story and brand that they're trying to, you know, tell their consumer.
It's like having a floating head. Like, it's fine to have a floating head and it's, you know, doing a little bit of it, but if it hasn't got the brand and the body to stand on, it's going to fall flat.
I use this one analogy. My wife's just come out for some reason. Oh,
hi, wifey.
Okay, hello. Hang on, there she goes, running back inside the house. I use this analogy, and I liken it to like a band, right? You can have a front man that has the most amazing voice, but if he is supported by a band of fourth graders clanging away at instruments and all of that, it's going to get drowned out. Whereas if you had someone that doesn't exactly have the most desirable voice as a frontman, but you do have these incredible musicians behind, like, yes, it'd be better to have, like, you know, a frontman with a great voice to complement it, but the music's still going to be...
even, like, throw out the hierarchy. Like, if you've got too much of a strong frontman and everyone else is kind of just, like, coming along for the ride... So it's not going to work as well.
It's so important at that early stage to communicate to the client that all these other things really need to be thought about, right? But this creates a problem, because a startup brewery might not have that budget to put in all that effort and energy in creating this visual landscape that's going to be perfect for their company. Right?
So in that, how do you still find and provide that level of service and value of service that you pride yourself on when they can't necessarily come to the party at the first kind of meeting? How do you do that?
Options with that, and I also leave it quite open to suggestions. I sort of throw it back. I always have FaceTime with my clients. I let them, you know, meet me and see that I'm passionate about this industry. Have a chat about craft beer, which is a shared interest and all that sort of stuff. And I will basically, I've got like a quote document, right? and it has, a figure that sort of, it is a bit of a bracket price.
Yeah.
And I'll say if they can't meet that bracket price, I'm willing to options, and that could look like a deposit. Say depending on how much budget the finished project would be. Let's say it's 25% or 50% or whatever. We can sort of negotiate that. A deposit is made. They might be only able to afford 5K, for example, right, or 10K at the start, but it might be anywhere between say 20 to 50K as a whole thing done. I will offer them that. Okay, well, I'll take on this project for that deposit amount. Let's just call it 10. We'll use round numbers, or 5, and the rest gets invested back into the company. Or I own the IP, and you can pay back based on certain targets that you hit.
Okay.
So I do it that way. That way, I still get the work and the money over time, or invested back. I like the invested back in the company because you get that, you form a relationship that's rock solid going through. Like, it's in your interest for it to,
to win, to progress, to build.
So there's ways
that.
like that. So there are options, and then, like I said, I'll leave it open to them as well, where I'm open to suggestions to make this work. And if it doesn't, you have to look at your work at the time as well, and see whether you can do it. So that's
well.
one.
So by the sounds of that, it kind of sounds like you do mostly a combination of project pricing that takes into the account value, that takes into the account the amount of hours. So it's kind of more project pricing. Is that how you do most of your work?
Yeah, I never base it on time.
Good.
No, I've never based. The only time I ever use time is if I'm doing ongoing graphic design services. Like, say, one of my breweries needs a decal design or something like that, for a limited release or something like that. Then I'll have sort of base it on time, stuff like that. If a client wants I don't do many brochures or flyers these days, but that would be something that would be an hourly sort of service. Yeah.
And I feel like it's worth mentioning as well that when we do operate in a project-based and influenced by value-based pricing, I think it's really important to mention that whilst we're not charging hourly, and that's what people are used to and traditional designers are used to,
yeah,
it's delivering on that value as well. And the one I want to call out is actually the Slipstream project. Clearly, I've done a lot of research on you this week. I've seen a lot of videos of you this week, Matt.
Here you go.
But the one I want to call out is Slipstream, because Slipstream has more than one logo.
Yes.
It has more than one. It's got all these kind of interlocking items that form the brand. And then you've also thought about, okay, so when we do a limited release, it'll have a foil. When we do the ales, or when we do the different types, they'll have this colors and these like moments and like things that have been forethought. And that's where it comes to bringing the value, bringing that extra forethought of not going, okay, here's the logo and good luck, and here's the colors and here's the fonts, you do it. You've kind of sat there and gone, here's the brand, here's the forethought I've done for you, and when it comes to it and you're ready, we can do this, but this is what I've planned for your brand if you're willing to come on the journey with me.
Slipstream, I threw the kitchen sink at Slipstream, and
and it shows. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Slipstream's been, in terms in the design community, probably the most recognised work that I've done in that space. It, like, in terms of, like, if it counts, like your appreciations and reblogging and stuff like that, it's been featured on a few things. Look, Slipstream was an ambitious one for me because there are a lot of elements in it. And I remember someone leaving a comment saying this shouldn't work, but it does because of how many, just the way it's tied together. Yeah, because there are a lot. Like if you look at the original,
you've got the logo type, you've got the round, you've got the wing, you've got the like other like iconographic bits like the beer, like there's all these different elements.
Calligraphy for each name. It has also a little illustration as well, and they're all different styles.
A little combi.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a really fun one, and like I said, ambitious one to do, and I'm really happy with the way it all came together, and for other people to like, because you do expose yourself when you put it out there, right? And for people to actually get it and love it, it was felt good. But so let me just talk about the different logos and stuff like that. For breweries especially, and not just for breweries, for a lot of clients, depending on what industry they're in, I like to create what I refer to as a logo suite. Now, not one size logo fits all for a brewery. So what's going to work really well on a can isn't going to work well out front of the tap room, on a banner or an awning. And also you've got the small spaces to consider, whether it's your avatars or, not that craft beer uses bottles, but on a bottle cap or something like that, often it's all switched to cans, but you got to think about all those sort of things. And so with Slipstream, I created, and there is a consistency, like there's a typeface that's used as a supporting typeface that draws it together, and then that little wing, and that little wing was really the icon that sort of was to encapsulate Slipstream, that sort of fast. Oh, hang on, something's coming out. Gonna get a little visitor. Just 1 second. I promised you. This is the cutest thing you've ever seen, ever.
This is a skew. You've just submitted a question. Can you submit it in the question box so I don't lose it?
Look at this little
thing. My God, look at the little chicken nugget.
And the puppy's not too cute. Is pretty cute too.
No.
That's my wife, Anne. Say hello.
Hello.
Look how cute that
Hi, wifey. Oh, don't put it in front of you. Oh my goodness, look at that. That is a chicken crispy tender strip. That is beautiful.
He is just adorable. Is that in screen? I can't tell.
Yeah, there he is.
Look at that. Hey?
Oh my God. That's definitely going to be the cover of like chats with Matt, and there's just a dog on the screen.
But so getting back to that, so I created a logo suite so that's going to tick all those boxes, right? And do you know what? It's really, really cool for them as well to have that variety across their apparel as well. Right? So
because it means that someone can actually be like a collector of their brand as well.
Exactly. So it's really nice. It's like, with the Black Hops that I designed, they've got the chevron that they use. I do
love that one too.
Yeah, and they've got the lettering style logo, so they bounce between the two. And with limited release beers, it's really nice sometimes to move. Like once people start to know the brand, you can sort of shift away from your master logo and just use, like in Slipstream's case, maybe just the monogram that I've created, or the little little bird wing thing. So that's really nice because limited edition beers is a completely different, you can get a bit more adventurous and steer away from the brand and make it more about
and do a foil.
Exactly. So and so then with Slipstream, creating all that was a lot of fun, and it for me it was nice to get into some illustration as well, which I dabble in here and there. I'm actually doing a bit of more illustration at the moment, which I'm
me
enjoying.
too lately. It kind of naturally progresses, and you kind of you sit there and you find yourself on a Monday morning going, okay, so I have 5 jobs on this week and 4 of them are illustration. Not sure how this happened, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly. It's great, and it comes back to that sort of stepping outside of your comfort zone to do different styles, like with these limited release beers at the moment. In fact, if I can just backtrack just a little bit, I've got into a real funk a few months ago, and I just creative block, You know, maybe I was indulging too much of my lifestyle passions. And so work was starting to like, you know, I wasn't really getting a lot out of, I wasn't finding the passion in the work for a bit.
Yeah.
And the only way I got out of that funk was by going, okay, well, you got to step outside your comfort zone. You can't just keep leaning on sort of certain styles and stuff like that. So doing these new limited release beers, even though the deadlines can be quite tight sometimes, saw me starting to do a little bit more exploratory sort of illustration work, whether it's, you know, pencil or pen on paper or vectorizing illustration sort of work. So there you go. So when you get into creative funks, because I do get asked that question, how do you get out of those sort of funks? I think you've got to push yourself to sort of create something that's a little bit more challenging, because you got to use your brain to work out how to do it. You know, why does that illustration look good? You know, how can I apply what looks good about that to what I'm doing? You know, and that for me is always fun.
I think so it was Mary Kate McDevitt, when I was at Letter West, said you need to find the joy in creating something that didn't exist yesterday. And I just love that it's, you know, to be able to create something that didn't exist yesterday, you need to know what exists.
Yeah.
And you need to know how to put your own spin on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you had a really good conversation.
Stone and Wood was the beer that I was thinking of before when I had
Stone and Wood, right. That does make sense.
My brain does work.
It just catches up. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on daylight savings. It's all good. Yeah. You had a really good question earlier, and I've just popped it up on the screen. So how did Matt get started in brewery design, and what was his first paid project in the space? Because I think that's really an interesting question, because a lot of the, I guess, insinuation is if you're working in a space like a brewery space or restaurants or certain small businesses, you're doing a lot of stuff for free. So how did you get started, and what was your first paid project?
Okay, so the very first brewery project I worked on was for an existing client of mine who was a dentist, and that was Great Hops. And that, again, was another illustrative one. They've got, that took a long time for that to materialize, his brewery, his vision, because he was doing that on the side. He's down in Nambucca Heads, and he was working in Sydney, flying to Sydney everywhere. So it took like 10, maybe longer. It was like a decade that it took for it to sort of come to fruition. And it is the most amazing space you've ever seen now. It's just full of eclectic artifacts. You know, that he's got a fire truck that parks into an airport hangar style brewery with these big bird cages that hang from the roof, and you know, vintage artifacts just it's really cool. So I designed that logo, a real handwritten sort of vintagey style for him way back in the day. And as this brewery, I'm going to get to the question about the paid part in a second. But I think it's important to tell this part of the story as well. So I did this way back in the day, but then they just had a logo. And so all of that was being built in the background, and nothing happened with that for ages. And then Black Hops was the first paid one. Now, they came along, it was probably about, 12 months after I created that. I can't remember whether he had done a Google search of breweries and saw the Great Hops one and then found me on Dribble via that, or Behance. But I know back in the day, it was either Behance or Dribble that they found me through, and it was just coincidental that I was on the Gold Coast. So I don't know if it was a lot of that work, but that was the first paid brewery. And they've gone on to do great things, and they've really entered that space, kicking goals and stuff like that. So back in the day, though, they were just a startup, and they did not have much of a budget, and that helped me work out the value of what I should be charging breweries today, because they've gone on to be such a a big brand in this space. That but through that I have had exposure as well. So I'm not a big believer of doing work on the promise of exposure, of course, but I really wanted to do that job at
Yeah.
that time. And I remember I had quoted X amount and they only had half of that budget. But with that, there was chat about how, the exposure stuff. And whilst I never took that as, because you never know what's going to
You
happen with it.
don't. Yeah.
Can't ever rely on that. But I wanted to do that. And it was around the time Bolter was starting as well. And I just felt I'd really like to work on this project. And so, again, I threw the kitchen sink at that, right? And, it did well, and it's a popular brand now. So that then resulted in quite a few other breweries getting in contact with me, and so I formed great relationships with other breweries because of probably that starting point. And then Great Hops then came back into the picture with their brewery and all of that, and then I had to design their cans because I had created their logo based on nothing back in the day.
Which means that you've now learnt from that.
Yeah, so now I could see their brand as it evolved. So then I had to do the cans, and that was a fun project as well. But he was a friend, so I did that, and for him, sorry, there's just a car in my rearview mirror. Well, what's he doing? Anyway, so that's cool. Have I answered that question? I think
so. Basically, you're saying that the first one was a lower paid kind of, you just kind of lucked onto the kind of finding in that space, and then someone else saw that and then paid you for a bigger one, and then they grew, so you were able to go back and work for them again. Is that right?
No. Okay, so I probably didn't explain that too well. I did that first one, Great Hops, because he was an existing client and I wanted to get into the space, but I did it just, look, here's a logo. I designed it for him, just on the tick. Just when things start to evolve, we'll talk about that later, which isn't a great way. Look, I only ever do that if I feel, I've got a good relationship with that person and I don't mind doing it and I've got the time and stuff like that.
I've got that exact same relationship with one of my clients. She's in the travel luxury space, but she's also doing a side venture with someone else on a different project. And we've done that logo knowing that it might go places and it might not.
Yeah. So I ended up charging that client down the track once things were, had evolved to a space where they were operating.
And deferred.
And so that was fine. Black Hops came a year or so later, and it wasn't, I wouldn't charge that now, what I did for them. Like I said, I learned from them that the value of what I do for a brewery is more than that. But I took on that job anyway at the start because I wanted to get into that space. And
it's a transitional kind of like, this is where I want to be, rather than doing a fakey job in my dribble or Behance, actually making it so that it's like, I would do this anyway, but there's still value in it. Yeah,
exactly. So, and now that's just helped me sort of work out, where that value is, because the amount of work that I put into it was incredible. Like, to create that whole brand and identity that, lasts, if you get it right at the start, lasts the duration of their, so, and it comes back to what I was saying right at the top, that, that value for a brewery is a lot more than what it is for your next door dentist.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. No, I like that. And so when it comes to like pricing and putting and recognizing the value, what would you say the kind of best lesson you've learned from that whole process is?
The best lesson that I've learned from that, it comes back to realizing that with certain clients, it can be value based, not just a logo for them is the same as a logo for them. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the lesson that I've learned, that certain clients and that have more exposure, you have to sort of, that value is a lot greater.
I think that the way that you kind of put it before with the, like, if a dentist has a logo at the front of their business, that's got one value. But if a brewery is selling and continuing to sell on partially, like that visuals play a part in the purchasing understanding.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, yeah, definitely understand that the value is different.
The visual impressions are so much greater.
Yeah. Especially when we're all kind of purchasing based on browsing and going, oh, that one looks good, or that one sounds good, or I haven't tried that, or it caught my eye. And it'd be really interesting to be basing your designs off being in that saturated market.
Yeah, that's it. So, you know, it's tricky. And look, I mentioned also that I don't know if I'm doing this the right way, but it has been working for me. But I also put bracket prices as well. And I just educate a client that, you know, okay, I've worked for some that have, you know, been for this amount and some that have been for that amount. They can often cross-reference those brands and stuff like that. And that gives them an idea of the kind of level of service. And because I present all of my stuff online on my website, those presentations, they can kind of, you know, they can get a feel for attention of detail. Not like I put energy in everything, you know. But, you know, like you said, I mean, if you have a look at some of the distillery projects I've worked on, like that's another space that, like, you know, you could go down. Okay, this is where it gets confusing as well, because just because you might do something that's minimalistic doesn't mean it's got any less value, because that can be really challenging to create and execute in a way that, you know, nails minimalism, compared to something that's ornate and detailed.
That requires that finicky time.
Yeah, exactly. So they still have the same value, but I guess I would lean on the more expensive side for the ornate sort of stuff, especially if you're talking about detail. Like, so with breweries,
like your Bobbies, your Bobby Helquish, like this.
Exactly. There's another name which I'll remember in about 20 minutes time.
Okay, cool. We'll circle back to that one.
Well, Simon Frowes, again, he's the most brilliant artist and designer in that space that I know of. There's another one which, again, in 20 minutes time I'll remember. Yeah, so if you've got a core range and each one has a different unique illustration for each label, then of course that you've got to adjust your budget to factor in, because that's going to be a lot more time. And even though I don't charge on time, but it is going to suck up a lot of your time creating these illustrations for each one, rather than maybe just a simple color change for each core range design. So
yeah. And I'm also really glad that you used numbers that were pulled out of the air, but they have some kind of context before. So like
Chad Michael.
Yes, less than 20 minutes. Look at you. Hey, you're getting faster. And I feel like it's really relevant to say, you know, there are people out there who are willing to pay and invest in good branding and good brand development and understanding that it's not just on the logo done sorted. And when I say willing to pay, it's not as uncommon as it used to be to have a brand that is $10,000 to invest in.
Yeah.
Like that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Past Jazz, feeling bad for charging $3,000 for a brand, like that.
Yeah.
Stop feeling bad for that. If it's a brand that's going to last them, it's like investing in a good pair of clothing or a good piece of like machinery for your kitchen. Like if you're investing, it's really important. So any freelancer or designer that is scared to be charging those numbers, you just need to be recognizing that if you're going to be charging more, you need to bring more value. And that's where you do this whole like understanding of the brand.
I think what's given me the confidence as well, you know, like I said earlier, is that body of work. But in the early days, right, when I was starting out and I didn't have any clients and, you know, I was pretty much invisible. I was eyeballing on Behance. There were only a few presentations back in the day, but some really lovely visual identity presentations that were just, you know, basic logo and basic, like, like colors, fonts and stuff like that. And the way they laid it out in a presentation, before I'd really seen that, I'm going back 12 years or so. Before that, I would just present a logo on a sort of like an A4 document. That there'd be one there, 3 options, a couple of colors, and some fonts, right? All on this one thing, and that's to a client. So much value in that, really. Like, they might see something that they like and all that, but then when I saw these presentations, I just thought, that's how it's done. That's how it's done.
I feel like it's bringing that storytelling element. It's like if you say, oh, I saw such and such down the shops and they were good. Yeah. Or, so when I was going down to the shops and I saw this person, okay, so she looked really good. She did this, she did that, she did this. Yeah. And then she told me about this story. Like, it's that bringing them in. Yeah,
exactly. So, you explain in these presentations and you brand the presentation of the brand of the company that, you're presenting, and they start to see everything in context. But not only that, they get to see little design decisions, that you made, like, little sort of grid sorters that, overlays that map out why the mark is this size compared to, the logo type and all that. That way they don't really argue with, oh, we want the mark bigger, because they can see that thought process is gone in.
They can see the why. And
the methodology behind why that mark is the way it is. Tell that story. And so in the early days, I thought, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and be the best presenter of logos that I can be. And looking back at it now, I mean, that's what really helped me get a lot of projects, because I would then publish them online, and other clients would see it and they would, fall in love with it. Otherwise, there's the Garbo in the background. Close my door, so.
Hi, Bindu.
So that really worked. I don't go to as much trouble these days now, because I used to throw the kitchen sink at it. I'll use that term again, but you can do overkill with it, but in order to get recognized, it was really valuable for me to do that. And so coming back to that value thing, once I started getting a body of work out there where I had half a dozen presentations like that, you can see the value in hiring me, because you're going to get that level of detail and that sort of thought process, that visual sort of skill that translates into what you're going to get. So that's what helped me.
A client wants a designer who gives a shit about their business too. Yeah. And that's massively more valuable than giving them 5 rounds of changes. Like, it's recognizing the difference.
Yeah, and I want to give a shit too, because if I'm not passionate about it, then I'm just sort of,
I'm not interested.
What's the point? Like, I want to enjoy the process, and I get a kick out of making the client happy and all that sort of stuff, and developing the relationships. Relationships is huge. There have been so many clients that you make an impression with, and you form a friendship, not just a client sort of thing, that comes back. Like, I worked for someone 10 years ago, and that, I'm now working for them again, like, just out of the blue, and it's fantastic. So I think it's really important also to learn from that, is to, it is your job to create something for your clients that's going to work for them. Mm-hmm. But develop a relationship, where they're going to talk about you whenever their friend says, oh, look, we need a logo. Do you know anyone? Or, oh, look, I've got the guy for you,
and it also means that they're actually able to articulate and be a great brand ambassador for you, of actually being able to say, they're great. They're a little bit expensive, but realistically, the value you're going to get is massive. If they say that to them, that's going to result in a much happier and like pave the way for the fact that they're not going to come in and go, hey, can you do a $50 logo? And it's like, oh, I'm going to have to disappoint you.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
No. Yeah, and you still get those. And I get
you do.
I get worries all the time.
Yeah.
is what it is, you know. But you got to treat every inquiry with professionalism, because you just don't know which one. You know, it might be presenting with red flags, but might not be. Like, it might actually be a legitimate, you know, job that turns into so much more.
Yeah.
So, like, as much as I want to sort of like get on my keyboard and go, do you not know how much work goes into this?
Do you know who I am? I am Berg.
Exactly.
I could never imagine you doing that though. Like, now that I know you, and now that I've had chats with you and had a beer with you, it's actually like, that's not him.
Yeah. So no, I don't. I just go, you just got to be professional about it, and just say, I don't know. You just, it's kind of like, I don't have like copy and paste sort of emails, but you've got certain ones that you've said a million times that just blurt out, you know.
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because
I might not be the best fit for this project then. All the best, you know, good luck with, you know, but try and not sound.
Yeah. And when you have more of a budget to invest in your brand, I'm more than happy to jump on board, or things like that. And it's actually quite funny that you bring that up, because I legitimately just posted a blog this morning that went out to my subscribers, and it's like how to fire a client without getting burned. And I've actually got a email script that you can copy at the bottom, which is like breaking up with a client without, you know, telling them exactly how you feel and exactly what it's about. So I was like, very good. So, and then in the coming weeks, I'm going to be doing a blog about the 5 email scripts you need in your recipe book, so that you can actually kind of tackle the 5 main places that you're going to find yourself in. So that's awesome. That's good to know. That's something that people are interested.
How many clients have you fired?
Sorry?
How many clients have you fired?
5. Over the last kind of 7 years in freelance, I've fired 5 clients. One of them was that, and this is actually something that anyone who reads my emails, this is exactly what you would have read this morning. So one of them was because they kept pushing my boundaries and multiple times expected me to work weekends or times that I said that I wasn't available.
Yeah.
One got too close and started using friendship as currency for invoices.
Oh God.
One was we got partway through the job and couldn't articulate exactly what they wanted, and kept changing the goalposts. So I stepped away from that. And then the last 2 were just literally, as soon as I saw them pop up on my phone or I got an email from them, like, skin feels the wrong size for my body, sweats, stomach drop. Like, it didn't make me feel good anymore. So I needed to say goodbye. And, you know, some of them, it's like, you know, it's not your fault. And it might even be that you say, hey, this is a boundary I'm not okay with. We can work through it, or we can find someone else. Yeah,
it's tricky. It's only happened to me once before, and I've since written in my contracts, which is so loose anyway. Like,
me too.
I've got it because I don't give clients restrictions on revisions. Right?
Okay.
But I approach it with this mentality. I present one concept to a client. I don't present multiple. Did I get you? Have I got you back?
Yeah, you got me back.
Okay. So, I present one concept. I go all in, but I only go all in when I feel like I've really answered the brief, or the client's going to love it if it's right. And I'd be lying if I said all of the time it works, but most of the time it works. When it doesn't work, I approach it. Okay, I say, and this is my contract, I won't shortchange you concepts, but you have to approach it with, no, sorry, let me rephrase that. Based on good constructive feedback, I will then revisit the concept, whether that's starting from scratch or whether it's just refining, it doesn't matter, right? But it requires good constructive feedback, right? And almost every time after that, if I get good constructive feedback, because I know what I'm doing, I can usually steer that in the right direction. There might be a couple of then changes after that and all that, but that confidence that the client, knows that, okay, that they're not forced to get it sort of complete, I've found has helped. And I say in my contract, the only thing is you can't approach it with "I'll know it when I see it" mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Because that will bring you unstuck every day of the week. Right? Because that can draw you out, for just revision after revision after revision. So once you just make that clear to the client that they've got to work out what it is that's not right, and you have to sometimes help them through that process. So it's not like, some clients are really good at explaining what is not right. Look, it's looking a little bit more, it's looking a bit too masculine or feminine or collegial or whatever it is. The colors are, some clients are good, some don't know. So you have to sort of chat through that process. Exactly. But yeah, you can't approach
I
it.
like that.
Know it when I see it.
Yeah, and that's the level of service that you've kind of set up way back when you've said, okay, this is the price, and you've worked out all of those kinks at the start.
Yeah. So that's why I don't you give them some security that they're going to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Say there's just 3 revisions and they've forked out, I don't know, 25K for this huge branding project, but they only get 2 revisions. We might end up with something that we don't really like, but we were forced because of the revisions. But yeah, communication, pretty key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just finding that balance and kind of how it works for you for your own clients. I think I've had to reduce my clients down to like a core 6 or 7, and I'm actually like saying to other work at the moment, sorry, I'm not available until next year, which is it's hard to say no. I am your cliche Virgo, people pleaser, eldest daughter millennial. Like that is the box that I have fit myself really nicely and neatly into. So saying no to people is very, very difficult for me, but I've had to, because I've got, like, I sat there and go, okay, these kind of 6 projects that I've got on my plate at the moment for now until end of December.
Yep.
That's enough to make me or sustain me, and then I can put the rest of the energy and the effort into creating easy as pie pricing, the relaunch of the course next year.
Yeah.
And because I want to make sure that I want to give all of the value I can to the students in that course, it's more important for me to balance that, I think.
Right too. You're right too. See,
and I think that's kind of works with you as well, with like you're trying to find the balance between having that actual life that is going out for a surf every morning or for a kayak or whatever it is, that really enjoys and indulges in the lifestyle that you've built for yourself based on your career.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Taurian eldest son, Gen X people. I think that's the order you said it in. And I struggle saying no.
Mm-hmm.
I just, because I've gone through quiet periods, and you never know next, quiet period might happen. Not so much at the moment, but like I'm really busy at the moment, and I know, I can feel it in my bones that I'm saying yes to quite a lot of things at the moment, and that can bite you in the ass because you're not delivering your best work to what you've got. So it's tricky. I think you've got to be upfront on timescales, but like I just seem to say yes. No, I'll do it. Very sort of mine. I'll do it. Sort of.
I can handle that. And no one else can handle it like I can. So if I don't do it for them, then I'm going to be doing them a bad disservice because they don't get to have that problem solved by me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've actually had a client that I deferred for a month, and I said, look, I don't have capacity to handle your job until next month. Then they said, not a problem, we'll wait. I then had a meeting with them at the start of the month, and within a week I had quoted them and they'd said no and gone with someone else. So it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't mean that they're definitely locked into you just because they've waited the period. They're still actually trying to find out and work out if they're the right fit for you, and sometimes they're not.
I find the clients that you take on board that don't have a tight deadline, the hardest ones to get done as well. Because
Yeah.
I typically put out the most urgent fires. Like, I'm very efficient at what I do when I put my, you know, hat, my working hat on, and I get into that headspace. I'm very efficient. I can get through a lot quickly, right? That's just
Mm-hmm.
through experience and having done this for a long time. But more importantly, sort of having that visual foresight as to what the execution is. If I don't know
Yeah.
what the execution is before I start, then yeah, that that can take time. But if I've got an idea of what I want to do and I have to knuckle down and do it, I can get things done quite quickly. But when I've got a deadline that's oh, we've got a couple of months, it's okay. We don't want to rush this process. I just keep putting out all the urgent ones before it, and then all of a sudden we get to the end of that, and it's like, shit, I've got to do that one as well. So I end up, and you don't get less of a service when I'm working like that. That's my process.
Yeah, me too. My process is doing 5 different things at once, all at the same time, like I'm cooking, and then the meal comes together at the end. You still get served. It's just chaotic.
Yeah.
And my process.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I've got to, I don't know, I've got to juggle a few things at the moment, but it's good. It's good. It's a good problem to have,
Yeah, most definitely.
So I'm about to say yes to a client, an inquiry that has some red flags, and I'm letting my ego get in the way of the job.
I've been there. I've so been there.
I could really be like, I feel like I'm the right person for the job, right? But I won't go into details, but I was a bit put off by something, and I'm thinking, well, this could be a really drawn out job if those warning signs are sort of, but I want to do the job, and I know I can do a great job for this. I really connect with what they're doing and the space they're in. And
yeah,
so
I've got one of those at the moment where like there's a couple of red flags. There's a couple of things that I'm like, I'm not 100% okay with that. And usually I would say no, but this person can introduce me to other people that are where I want to be.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good question, Say So. So Say So Creative says, do you charge more for a red flag job?
Yeah, it's a great question. And not in this instance that I sort of just talked about, because I had already put pricing out there, but it definitely makes me feel more confident at doing the upper end than say the lower end. I'm not going, if there's red flags, well then okay, well it's, you're not going to get my mates rates for that. It's, this could be a problem. This could be painful, right? If it's going to be painful, I don't want to feel bitter about charging the lower end of, what my, rates sort of fall between.
Yeah, I think that's really like it's all well and good to charge a pitter fee, a pain in the ass fee, or a faff fee, a fuck around fee. Like I feel like it's all well and good to charge it, but you need to still make sure that you're actually willing to do the work and that actually justifies it. Because sometimes you put up extra money on it, but it still doesn't actually make it hurt any less or be any less frustrating.
And red flags isn't always like negative. Like in this instance, like I want to try and turn those red flags into green flags. So just because something might start off as red flag, like I want to work through that. Okay, let's, and that comes, like, everyone's different. Everyone's got different personalities. Some people you connect with, fantastically, and some people, they're just, you might not. There might be, but if you work on it, it doesn't have to be a problem. And if you work on it and still is a problem, well then, okay, you just get the job done, move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's a lot of the time you're like, oh, this job has to sustain me, or this project has to last me and get, it's going to be the end of my life. You might be like, you can look back on jobs that were pain in the ass jobs like last year and not even remember what the issue was.
Yeah, that's it.
Like if it's something that's going to be in your past and like not a problem and it's short-lived,
Have
cool,
you ever
not a problem.
filing of like, projects, or, look back on external hard drives and gone through your client list, and a certain name you don't recognize, and you click on it and you open it up and then it bangs up and you go, I did that. Like it's amazing when you do work on a lot of clients. Like, I can pretty much remember them all, but there's some that you just go, oh yeah, I did that.
Oh, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one that I've actually been with since beta testing of her company. Like it's actually wild how much I cleaned out a section of my house the other week and I found her beta product and I took a photo of it and I was like, from beta to billboards, because we've gone, this is talking like 4 or 5 years ago. And we did, like, I was one of her beta testers for her first product. And then after I tested it, I reached back out to her and said, I think I could be helping your branding and your brand experience for your customers. I'd love to help. And now here we are years later, and I've just designed billboards for her for Qatar Airways shopping airport. So like now I've got this massive installation happening in the airport that like for Qatar. So it's like, you don't know where it's going to lead.
That was Slipstream. That was Slipstream for me, right? That at the start when they first started, it's so expensive starting up a brewery, right? There are so many, and they didn't have, they had a budget, but then all of a sudden something popped up and then they didn't have the budget. So they had to go the cheaper option, something they could afford, I should say. And I saw their beers starting to blow up in the craft beer space, like just highly regarded, like, in terms of flavor and all of that. And that's when I sort of reached out to them again. Like, it was a year later to congratulate them on launching. And
that is it.
I've heard great about your beer. It's fantastic. And not forcefully or pushy, just say, look, if you do want to look at your brand and all of that, right? Again, I'd love to work something, I'd like to. So I wanted to work for them, and then it just turned into an ongoing relationship and stuff like that. And then we worked through it. So
yeah, that's actually one of the weeks, one of the subjects that I'm making sure I cover in the Easiest Pie Pricing course is like, we're doing a whole week on after sales. There will be a whole week on how do you ensure that after you've worked with a client that you are increasing your chances to work with them again. Like, are you reaching out because you've seen them do something, or do you set up alerts or check-ins, or selling new services to existing clients? Like, how can you make sure? Like, I've got the smallest thing of that. I know one of my clients gets a coffee at a certain coffee spot. So if I'm going to go and see her, I will pick up a coffee from her favorite coffee spot and bring it to her when I start the meeting. Those little things cost me a couple of dollars, but it means so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I check in with all the breweries that I work for. Pretty much all of them, and
all the ones you want to work with still.
Yeah, exactly. So I check in and we have a chat, and I'm it's that they're also friends, now, and it's great, and it just checking in, and I'm not checking in to say, have you got any work for me or anything like that. How's it all going? Just everything, just have a chat, or congratulations on the award you just won recently for your IPA or Expo, whatever it is.
You crossed my mind the other day when I was browsing the aisles and noticed that you've got this coming out or that coming out, or one of my mates actually handed me this beer and I was like, hey, by the way.
Yeah. So, I've even like, there's been a couple of breweries that I don't do work for that I like their brand, and I've just flicked them a quick little email to say, look, just wanted to say I really dig your brand and stuff like that. Which I've only done that twice, but and that wasn't to get the work from them because I like it, so it's got to stay in that space. It was just a little thumbs up.
Yeah. And that builds
Guys.
your reputation.
Yeah.
And if you want to send me beer, that's great. Thank you.
I think that's what I was hoping for.
Oh, I love that. Well, we've well and truly gone over the hour, but I want to kind of finish up with this one question, which I feel like is really, revealing. So if you could go back to Matt all of those years ago, younger Matt, what would you say? What advice would you give?
Buy property.
How about with design or pricing or?
No, look, I feel like I don't think there's much I would say. I don't look.
Just keep going.
Actually, do you know what? There was one, and this is before I was Verg. I wish I probably had have negotiated some sort of something in the company. I was very close with that company, and it was a transitional period from me having to move from the Gold Coast. It would have been nice to maybe just go, what about I'll take a little salary cut, because they ended up selling. But I don't live with any regrets, actually. No, I wouldn't change. I've learned from it all, and I think you've got it. I think that's how Kyle Tillman answered as well, and he's a good bloke. G'day, Kyle.
Great bloke.
Well, it's good to talk shop with him. He's a sounding board. He helped me get out of a funk recently when I was like, it was good to just chat with him about things. I've so totally digressed. I just wanted to say g'day, Kyle. I don't think I'd change anything, because you learn from your mistakes, and it's as simple as that. I don't think any sort of one decision would have changed the outcome. Like if I had gone back and said, do this for that, I might not have got the job. If I had
basically just keep going. Just it's going to all work out.
Yeah.
I like that.
Look, I think I've always stuck to my guns with my rates. I don't I have a little bit of room to move mates rates, but I don't go too much below that. It's just not worth the time and energy. That said, it's hard when you do go through I've been through quiet periods in the 12 years, and that can be scary. And sometimes just doing a job for a bit less can sort of start a new purple patch of jobs, so you got to weigh up your situation. You got to weigh up the bills. You got to weigh up, everything at the time. But I don't think I'd change. No.
I like that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on with me on a Wednesday morning. I know that it's really kind of hitting me recently, talking to all of my old typism mates, how much I am missing typism. But I really look forward to us being able to catch up and having a beer at what is hoping to be 2022 typism. I'll be coming to typism as a married woman. That's different. Weddings in April, so we're planning everything around that. Thank you. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to catching up for a beer with you in what hopes to be typism 2022. Thank you so much. And for those who haven't followed Matt Vergotis, I highly recommend you jump on and check out his work, check out his Instagram. Is that the best way to find you?
Yeah, Kel knows it. I want to just apologise to anyone that's been leaving comments. I can't multitask, so I knew if I would look down there, I would stop listening to you, and then I would lose track. So thank you. I've only just seen Kel's buy property. Yes, absolutely. But anyway, look, I'm seeing a couple of surfing mates join in. G'day, Joshy boy, Maddie.
We actually have it around here that if I say, I'm going to be chatting to Matt, or it was something that Matt did, and Rose like, you? I'm like, you. Like it's always been the you thing.
When I was busy on Snapchat, I was big on the yous.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time out in your schedule. If you don't follow Matt, I highly recommend you do. And if you haven't already, jump on the Easiest Pie Pricing calculator, which is easiestpiepricing.com/calculate. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I will see you on the Gold Coast hopefully next year.
You will. You will. I just want to quickly say to
Yeah.
Matty, that's just signed in, I'm going to catch more mangrove jacks than him this season. It's happening.
Oh, okay. It's
It,
on the. It's official now.
he's on one, but I'm coming for you, mate. Sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. This is what it's like.
Yeah, thank you very much for the interview. I love tuning in. The last couple I couldn't because I was having Skypes with clients, but there's a couple there that I missed that I'm going back for.
Also, Maddie says not a chance. But have a great day. Enjoy your day, everyone, wherever you are in the world, and peace out.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.